show. Somebody had sent in requesting this subject. So I know you're kind of a master in this field. So I'm glad to have you on to discuss it.
Yeah, I mean, yes, religion of the apostles, that's really what it's about. It's trying to demonstrate that all of the beliefs of Christianity, following the veneration of the saints, the sacraments, the church, et cetera, all of that was extant in Second Temple Judaism, particularly in the first century AD. And so not only did the apostles have access to it, right, but this is what they were practicing. This is the religion they were practicing. You know, their writings in the New Testament evidence this. There's this presupposition that's a basic presupposition to evangelicalism that is Christ comes and sort of, okay, we're done with Judaism. Like, that's over. That was like religion 1.0. And now we're starting from scratch with religion 2.0, which is Christianity. Even though, of course, you know, they're not going to want to sound like Marcionites. They're not going to say, no, the Old Testament is Scripture, the Old Testament is Scripture. But functionally, right, in terms of their sola scriptura arguments, it functionally isn't for them. So Exhibit A, right, Presbyterians have what they call the regulatory principle of worship, which is the only things you do in worship are things that the Bible commands you to do in worship. And when they say that, by the Bible, they only mean the New Testament. Right?
Yeah.
They do not mean the Bible. And so that's kind of Exhibit A of this thing that like, oh, no, forget about all that. So the way they justify that, the way they try to work around Marcionism, right, and not being one, not saying, oh, we're just going to reject the Old Testament. Nevertheless, we're going to substantively ignore it, is Calvin's distinction between the civil and ceremonial and moral laws. All of Protestantism and evangelicalism in the United States had this Calvinist Puritan layer at the bottom. That's the first wave of Christianity in this country. Never mind that distinction appears nowhere in the scriptures, least of all in the Torah itself, right? The law itself does not make any of those distinctions. And never mind the fact that in order to do that, it's sort of like the JEDP thing. You have to like go through a chapter of Leviticus and be like, okay, well, this verse is civil law, and this next verse is moral law, and then you got 3 verses of ceremonial law, and then you got
yeah, that's an interesting critique, especially from the sola scriptura framework. You have to accept some level of tradition, and you're making up your own tradition at that point. So you're appealing to something outside of the scripture to even get to that distinction. You know what I mean?
These categories of this categorization.
Yeah, a modern tradition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, so they can appeal to this being an ancient distinction. There's a problem with it, though. Right. The first place where you actually see that distinction in the law, and I don't think most Calvinists know this. I don't even know that John Calvin knew this. But the first place you see that is actually, believe it or not, in the 3rd century, in a text called the Letter to Ptolemy. Unfortunately, it's a Gnostic text. And the Gnostic author of the Letter to Ptolemy was trying to do like a middle way between Marcionism and Orthodoxy by categorizing, well, some of this we keep and then some of it we just junk.
That is kind of a common thread with a lot of different modern Protestant distinctions. You see them make appeals to condemned heretics quite often. You see them make appeals to Origen for some of the exceptions in his theology, or to maybe say Tertullian. You'll see like the church fathers taught this. It's like some Protestant videos like the church fathers taught this, and they appeal to Origen and Tertullian. We did a video, me and Alex, not that long ago, responding to a guy whose name was like Reformed Pastor. And he was like, the early church taught this. Those were the 2 people he appealed to. So it seems to be a common thread.
Yeah. Origen was opposed to icons. Gee whiz. I wonder if it's because he was a Platonist, you know? Like,
right.
The other place where this becomes super problematic is, of course, Christ says he didn't come to abolish the Torah, but to fulfill it. Right? He says not a yod or timmel or jot or tittle, if you're a KJV guy, is going to pass away. Right? And so, you know, all of our Protestant and evangelical friends will be quick to say, no, we don't believe Christ abolished it. We believe he fulfilled it.
Right.
But first of all, in a lot of cases, fulfilled and abolished are basically synonyms for them, because either way they throw it in the dustbin, right? But also then you have this problem of, now that you've made this distinction of these three parts of the Torah, or the law, or the commandments, that Christ fulfills them all in completely different ways.
Right.
So Christ fulfills the moral law by keeping it perfectly, but then it still applies. Whereas he fulfills the ceremonial law by keeping it perfectly, but it no longer applies. And then the civil law could go either way. So it depends. Most Protestants evangelicals will say he fulfilled the civil law perfectly and it's gone. But then you get your theonomists and your Christian nationalists and stuff who want to say he fulfilled it perfectly and no, we need to reinstitute it.
It depends if they're preaching on tithing that week or not. That's really
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to. In the Old Testament, they kept 10%, so therefore give me 10% of your money. Oh, but wait, no, he fulfilled all this stuff. But except for that one. That one
Yeah.
you still got to keep though.